In 1912, the Titanic was celebrated as the ultimate achievement in engineering, but it was also a high-tech communication hub, carrying the most advanced radio hardware of its time. This is the Marconi Wireless Telegraph Room. Using radio frequencies and Morse code, the operators could transmit messages up to 1,000 miles across the open Atlantic. But this technology wasn't built for safety. It was a business. A brief 10-word personal greeting sent by a passenger cost about $100 in today's money. Because the system was a highly profitable luxury service, the maritime industry treated it like a floating post office rather than a vital piece of emergency equipment. Managing that backlog of paid greetings was the job of Jack Phillips and Harold Bride. They spent their days manually tapping out private messages for wealthy passengers, a grueling and repetitive task. On the night of April 14th, the workload reached a breaking point. When a nearby ship, the Californian, interrupted Phillips with an ice warning, he was so focused on the paid messages that he told them to shut up. About an hour after that dismissed warning, the Titanic collided with an iceberg. The ship began to sink. Suddenly, the machine built for profit became the only lifeline for over 2,200 people. At 12:15 a.m., Phillips stopped sending passenger greetings and began transmitting CQD, the international distress call of the era. He also sent the newer SOS signal. It doesn't actually stand for Save Our Ship. It was chosen because its Morse code sequence is incredibly easy to recognize through heavy radio interference. At 12:20 a.m., he reached the ship Carpathia. Phillips sent, "Come at once, we have struck a berg." The Carpathia turned to help, but it was over 3 hours away. The Californian was much closer, but because they had no legal requirement to keep their radio on, their operator had already gone to bed. The technology to call for help existed, but because there was no always-on protocol, the Titanic was essentially alone in the dark. This was the math on the deck. The ship's 20 lifeboats only had room for 1,178 people. For a population of over 2,200, there was no physical way for everyone to survive. By 2 a.m., Captain Edward Smith realized the situation was hopeless. He officially released the crew from their duties. Jack Phillips refused to leave. He stayed in the dark for another 17 minutes, rapidly tapping out distress signals as long as he had power. He finally left the Marconi room only when the power failed and freezing water reached his feet. By staying at his post, Phillips ensured the distress signal reached as many ships as possible, maximizing the chance that anyone would be found in the open ocean. At 2:20 a.m., the Titanic disappeared into the Atlantic. The airwaves went silent. When the Carpathia arrived over an hour later, they rescued 705 people. 1,500 others, including Jack Phillips, were gone. The news reached land the next morning. Titanic sinks 4 hours after hitting iceberg. As the scale of the disaster became clear, the public confronted a horrifying casualty list that included over 1,000 people who never had a chance to board a lifeboat. This tragedy proved that technological scale is no substitute for safety oversight. The era of trusting a ship's size to keep it safe was over. Governments responded by changing the rules of the sea. They established a new mandate. Every ship must carry enough lifeboats for every single person on board. To fix the communication failure, international law established a 24-hour radio watch. No ship would ever miss a distress call again because an operator turned off their machine. Today, those manual telegraphs have been replaced by automated, satellite-linked safety networks that monitor every vessel on the globe. The Titanic's wireless went silent in 1912, but the failures of that night led directly to the survival laws we use today. By combining mandatory lifeboat capacity with constant radio monitoring, we've created a safety system that protects millions of passengers every year.